Okay, so going to the next question, did Jephthah actually kill his daughter according to first, sorry, I say first, according to Judges 11:39 to 40. When I read the book of Judges 11, it's about Jephthah. Jephthah, who became a judge in Israel, like a political figure, essentially. And Israel was being oppressed by a neighboring nation. And Jephthah rose up as a military, as a political and military power. And then when they wanted to go and resist the people who were waging war against them, Jephthah made a vow, right? And he said that, God, if you would without fail deliver the children of Ammon, because they were being oppressed by the Ammonites, of Ammon into my hands, then it shall be that whatsoever comes forth, now pay attention because this is important. Whatsoever comes forth from the doors of my house to meet me, when I return in peace from the children of Ammon, shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it for a burnt offering. Now, fast forward, going on into the story, Jephthah went and waged war, and yes, he did win. And when he came back, it was his daughter that came first to come and greet him, right? And then they were really sad, and the Bible records that he did to her. She took off like 2 months to go and mourn, and then the Bible records that Jephthah did to her according to his vow. Now, so on surface level, the obvious interpretation of this text is that Jephthah rendered his daughter as a burnt offering. So he literally killed her, slaughtered her, and set her on fire as offering, as sacrifice to the Lord. But then, even if this was true, so we are working on two assumptions now. If case number one, even if this was true, right, that Jephthah did sacrifice, we can say for a fact that this was not the will of God, or this was not something that would have been acceptable to God. And this is why. The reason why this would have never been God's plan or will, or is that there prior to this time in in Numbers rather, in Deuteronomy, right, God had forbidden child sacrifices. Particularly when you go to Deuteronomy 12, God told them not to offer a human being as sacrifice, right? They can have a dedication of a human being to God in terms of sacrifice, but then the law, right, in the law of Moses was that the human being, so for example, the Lord would say they should, for quote unquote, sacrifice, or every firstborn was his, right? Every firstborn that opened his womb, he said, the Lord says, it is mine, right? And if God says something is his, they were to sacrifice it. But then because that person was a human being, the Lord commanded them to substitute, right? So the person was dedicated to God, but then instead of sacrifice, they substitute it for an animal that can actually be killed. So God forbade human sacrifices, and we can see that in what's the word now? So it was in Genesis, when Abraham was about to slaughter Isaac, the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said, "Stop! Don't do it. Stop, Sheba." And he stopped, right? Because God does not accept human sacrifices. So even if that was true, that the obvious meaning of the text is what actually happened, we can know that it wasn't and because Jephthah was a judge in Israel, we can safely assume that he knew the law, he knew everything, and God was not happy with it, because in the law it was disagreed, frowned upon. You would not sacrifice a human being, and those who sacrificed babies to Molech were called abominations, or that act was called abomination. So what then was going on in this text? I think the key to understand the other side, because I said the assumption, even if that was true, even if yes, it did, right? that wasn't acceptable to the Lord. The Lord did not endorse that. That was more like a description rather than a prescription, because there are texts in the Bible that describe and there are texts that prescribe. Description just tells us what happened, not saying we should do this. So Judas killed himself does not say you should kill yourself. It's a description, not a prescription. Right. So another possible, um, which is I think very likely is what happened in the text, is what we're about to look at now. And the key thing here is a number of things, but the first one is in the vow of Jephthah. So if just a sec, if we look at verse 30, when Jephthah was paste it in the chat function. When Jephthah was making the vow, verse 30 to 31, right? I'll read the vow. It says, if you would indeed deliver the people of Ammon into my hands, then it will be that whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the people of Ammon shall surely be the Lord. And that's the word, that's the key word there. Someone might think it was so special about and. I will explain. And I will offer it as a see. It is an Hebrew word because this text, Judges, was originally written in Hebrew. The Bible is written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. Originally, the original text, excuse me, written in Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. Right? Old Testament was mostly written in Hebrew and Aramaic, and New Testament was written in Aramaic and Greek as well. So Aramaic was like the overlapping language because of the Jews. But this and word is a Jewish word in the original text, because this is the English translation. Original text is a conjunction, and there's this is scholarly evaluation of the text. Sources like Stand to Reason, amazing institution for Bible scholarship, and some other professors. Let me probably not go into their names now, but you can check out Stand to Reason for this topic, just the topic and Stand to Reason. I will give you but then the word and in this text is the Hebrew conjunction there is, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, is VAV, vav, of whatever the pronunciation is. It's VA or VAV, right? And that conjunction, that is the conjunction that is most common in the Hebrew language, because there are other conjunctions that we have in English. We have and, we have but, we have or, we have also. Those are many conjunctions that we have in English, but this is this one that can mean a lot of other things in Hebrew. It can mean and, it can mean but, it can mean or, it can mean a lot of other things. And many scholars, when interpreting this text, when interpreting this verse, they interpret or translate, should I say, when translating this verse, they translate the and to the verb there to be or. So that means this could mean from the original text, that's verse 31, then it will be that whatever comes out of the doors of my house to meet me when I return in peace from the people of Ammon shall surely be the Lord, or verb, or I will offer it as a burnt offering. So it might be that, the other possible assumption that Jephthah came and said that, this whatever comes out to meet me would be at burnt offering, but in case, because he knew the law, he knew that human sacrifice was not acceptable. In case there should be anything that is not, and there were some sacrifices that were even some animals that were not acceptable by the law, right? If there should be anything that will come out of my house that's or let me rephrase that. You might say, it shall be the Lord's, or if it is sacrificable, I will sacrifice it. Or if it is, are you getting the gist now? So he was saying that I will dedicate this thing to the Lord, or I will give it as a burnt offering. So not of necessity to say that he actually offers as a sacrifice. And there are other clues that we would see in the text to show that this was actually what happened. Because when we go to read down, when Jephthah told his daughter, Jephthah came, she didn't know about the vow. His daughter came out dancing and rejoicing that, his her father came back alive and victorious. And verse 35 said, when Jephthah saw her, he was sad, and he told her the um the vow. And the daughter was like, if you have given your vow, because if you've given a vow to the Lord, you have to fulfill it by the law as well. So if you've given your vow to the Lord, you have, because the Lord has already done this part, you have to also do your own part. And then they now went on to say in verse 37 that they had the conversation that, see, let this thing be done for me. Let me alone for 2 months, that I may go and wander on the mountains and bewail my virginity. Now, this is interesting because I don't get why you are not bewailing the fact that you're about to die. Why are you bewailing your virginity? It might be right that this was also in line with the previous thing that we checked, the valve, the possible or that was seen in verse 30. That this was not that she was going to die, but like Hannah, we see in First Samuel that Hannah rendered up, Hannah gave Samuel to the Lord. She dedicated him to the Lord, and he was in the house of the Lord serving from a young age. We didn't see that Samuel got married, did we? Or at least for for the major part of his service, and he didn't go home. He was just in the temple. Do you get the picture of offering up to the Lord now? So if she says because she was still a virgin, she had not been married yet, she went to bewail her virginity, probably because she was being offered to the Lord was that she was going to perpetually serve before the Lord and she was not going to get married. So she bewailed her virginity with her friends. Because somebody, why not? If she was going to die and virginity was so important to you, why not just marry somebody because she took 2 months off? Why not just marry somebody for 2 months, right? And engage, right? And then die after 2 months. Why waste time? I don't know if you are getting my logic here. Why waste time? But then we go on to another clue that tells us that this might probably be what's actually going on. That it was not that she was sacrificed, but it was rendering to the Lord in service. So verse 38, go. Jephthah told her to go and sent her away for 2 months, and then she went with her friends and behold her virginity on the mountains. And it was so at the end of 2 months, she returned to her father, and he carried out his vow with her. Sorry, it carried out his vow with her, which he had vowed. She knew no man. Like, why was still they? Why in verse 39? Why did they still mention that she knew no man? What is the significance of her virginity in all of this? Probably because the vow has a lot to do with her knowing a man. And knowing a man is in coitus. Are you getting the picture now? Being a fulfilling the vow has a lot to do with knowing a man, because it's likely, highly likely that this was in service to the Lord, that you know she was just giving in service to the Lord and was in before the presence of God, probably in the temple or tabernacle as it was at this time for a long time. Now it became verse 39 to 40. Now this point just seals, I think it seals this other point, that it became a custom in Israel. The daughters of Israel went 4 days each year to lament the daughter of Jephthah, the Gileadite. Now, lament now doesn't mean mourn in this text. The word lament in this text is the Hebrew word Tana, Tanah, in English letters. Is Hebrew word Tana in verse 40, and it means to commemorate or to honor somebody. So of course, it might because many times people see that and interpret that to be like, oh, to mourn. but that's not what was going on. That's not necessarily that of necessity doesn't mean that's what that meant. It's the word itself means to commemorate or to honor. So it could be that they were going to where she was to honor her that oh she's doing such a great sacrifice for the Lord, all of those things. But then it is two possibilities, right? One is not 100% sure. That's my point. It's either he actually did it and did kill her, but if that was the case, it wasn't something um that was pleasing to the Lord. And there's also another case, right? Another possible way is that the fulfilling his vow that Jephthah did was not that he actually slaughtered, as we've seen, it might be just dedication to the Lord, and it's a translation. But either of the case is a possibility. Whether he did kill her or did not kill her, one is not 100% certain. But then, if he killed her, we know that is not in the plan of the Lord because God had over and over again forbidden human sacrifice for Israel. If he didn't kill her, then his vow meant that he gave her up to the Lord because of the Hebrew words, the conjunction verb, and as I've explained, and the lament and her mourning for her virginity. Because if you did die, waiting you dey mourn virginity for.